So I just get a little time to make sure that it's working.
I think it's working.
I think, yeah, cool. So welcome everyone. This is episode 87, coming up on 100 of Rocket Lab Weekly. And today we have Matt Money with us and Dave G is investing. Thank you guys for being here. And I think we break tradition a little bit because I can see Twitter is blowing up, the comments are blowing up, and yeah, so it's official. Sir Isaacman is out. He's not going to be the NASA.
Is it official?
Director. I guess. I don't know. It's all over.
I thought it was like looking highly likely, but I didn't think it was like.
What's going on? Is he going back to Shift 4 or what?
I mean, the tweet that I saw, it was pretty.
Like it sounds likely to me, which I find disappointing. And yeah, I assume he would go back to Shift 4, but it's not Isaacman deciding to go back. It's more like the administration.
Very true.
Yeah.
Look, this is the tweet that I saw. I don't know. More White House confirms Isaacman's out. Says replacement coming soon.
Maybe it's Elon. Just kidding.
Well.
And yeah. I mean, I saw many other tweets by a lot of people who is also Eric Berger. He was basically commented that NASA is effed. That was his comment.
Yeah. I saw he said a senior NASA official said basically NASA's, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Effed. You can beep yourself out. Don't.
It just feels not as anyway. Yeah.
I mean, it's super weird for me, but again, I don't know much about US politics, but he was going to get confirmed and he went through all the confirmation hearings, and what the heck could have happened from like he's the most qualified, amazing guy, let's vote on him, to like now he's out.
I mean, I think it's all speculation right now. I'd love to hear some theories, and I don't follow US politics that closely either. I think if I did, I'd probably just, lose it from stress and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like Elon had a little bit of a falling out with Trump and the administration. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard he didn't like their budget, maybe. And then I don't know if I heard some people say, well, maybe this is Trump retaliating. But you guys let me know what you think, though.
Maybe. They seemed pretty cordial. And Elon's, I just listened yesterday, maybe it was last night. Elon's last, I guess, official day in office is sometime this weekend. But he was in the Oval Office kind of giving his last minute spiel about Doge and still thinks that there's $1 trillion budget cut ambition in terms of total amount of money saved, etc., on an annual basis. And they seem to be pretty cordial, Trump and Elon. Maybe they were just putting on a good face to just be like, okay, well, we're already cutting ties, in terms of Elon's stint in the government. So, why make a big stink of it, but you might be onto something, who knows? But yeah, he was vocal that the budget was more than he was expecting, which I agree. I mean, I was expecting a little bit, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think David Sachs did a very good explanation in the All In podcast about this budget, because I don't think there's anyone who really likes the budget, but it's a huge negotiation. Like it has to, like, that's the thing that I think some people who don't follow politics thinks that like Trump has this almighty hand, and just because he says that this will be the budget, like it's not his call. Like it has to go through Congress and Senate, and to get the votes, you need to agree with a lot of people. And this David Sachs was basically saying that, look, this is the best that they could get agreements on. And Elon is an advisor. He also said it, I think, in the latest interviews, I think in Qatar or in Saudi Arabia, that he said that the Doge government unit is an advisor unit, and they give their recommendations, and then the recommendations need to be passed in Congress. And if Congress doesn't want to pass it, then there's not more than Musk can do, because contrary to what the media states, it's not a fascist dictator state in the US. There is still
I do think there might be something to what both Curtis and Jacob are saying in the chat, that Isaacman maybe didn't want to cut as much as Trump wants to cut.
Yeah.
And there is actually, when it comes to NASA, of course, there is actually a tweet out there from Eric Berger saying before Isaacman was decided upon, the other person under consideration was just going to like cut as much as possible, basically. So maybe they're going back to that ideology.
Yeah.
That's so far the best or most plausible. Because maybe Isaacman was like, I can't do what I want with the budget that you guys want, right? And then the admin was like, we can't give you the budget that you want. And then they said, okay, then it's not gonna work. It's a divorce, guys.
It's a tough ask. I mean, I've heard several of the people that are putting out budgets, like, you know, you have to think they just were under kind of the ability to be elected maybe by late February timeframe, and now they had to kind of put a budget in place by mid-May timeframe to be approved by Congress. And unfortunately, it doesn't give a lot of leeway to literally go line item by a line item unless that's truly what your focus has been since day one. And so you guys might be onto something. You might have just been like, you know what, like it'll be a second year priority for me. I'm not going to focus on it this year. You know, I'd rather get other things focused on, and it might have been a sticking sore point. But I know that budgets around the whole administration have been kind of finally looked at because, you know, some people haven't formally submitted their budgets as of yet, and other folks are still, you know, so I think it's really hard to be able to be like, what was last year? What am I supposed to propose this year? As well as making sure you're not going to unnecessarily cut some things, because some things in the government are actually essential, believe it or not. You know, we spend $5 trillion a year, but I'm sure a couple trillion of that, you know, is kind of necessary, like Medicare and a few other key government things. So you don't just want to blindly kind of go in and be like, yep, 50% budget cut, you know, whatever we need to do to get it.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I would say is like, I realize, you know, it's impossible to be like impartial on this, and everyone probably has their pet issues where they say, okay, you know what, you can cut those other things, just don't cut this. But having said that, I do feel like, but just like, why so heavy on NASA and the science and planetary science specifically is disappointing to me. But again, you know, I'm a fan of space and all that, so I'm sure there's other people out there saying, why cut this or that? And ultimately, there is a deficit they need to balance.
Yeah.
But I'm still not very happy right now. Yeah. With the news Isaacman being out.
Yeah. I mean, it's very tricky because I agree with you, Dave. But at the same time, also space is one of the things, if you, you know, read the books that we have available, like When the Heavens Went to Space, and you know, Elon's biography, and you know that there's cost plus contracts, and there is, how do you call it, like it's almost like some space research is like a government handout and, you know, like a job market, as opposed to like money looking for the best solution to solve the problem. So while I agree with you on it really sucks to cut certain things, at the other time, like I feel that NASA was one of the most ripe things to be reformed and cut, and, you know, like put on a diet, so to say.
Yeah. I mean, we could debate this kind of stuff for a while. It's not really Rocket Lab specific, but personally, I just feel like, you know, it's such a small percentage of the overall budget, NASA, that even if you completely gut it, like how much does it really move the needle? But I guess all the savings, wherever they can find them, they want.
I just want to take up something for discussion. Like somebody says, maybe Elon's withdrawal from the admin Doge means a new down prioritization of spaceflight. And the thing is, I think that Musk was always going to leave at the time when he left. So he had a status of a special government employee, and per some law, it says like how many days he can work for the government and provide services for free. And if he goes over that time, he would have to basically sell all of his Tesla and SpaceX shares, and he would have to disclose certain things. And it was always impossible. Like that's if you watched again the All-In interview with Howard Lutnick, I think it was David Freeberg, who did that interview with him, where he explained that this was the workaround that they found, how Musk can even contribute anything to the admin, and he cannot go over this time. So I think it's very clickbaity to say that Musk and Trump ended their relationship and Musk is withdrawn from the White House, but this was always coming. So and they did seem to have a very amicable departure. And again, this big, beautiful bill. I don't see many people who liked it. It's kind of the negotiation where the Republicans and the Democrats are equally upset, and that's when you know that you had a good negotiation. That's kind of my read on the cycle.
So what do you guys think it means for, I guess, Rocket Lab specifically?
Well, I mean, Rocket Lab went to zero this past week, and it freaked a lot of people out. No, just kidding. But
I was talking to someone, by the way, I guess a little off topic in our Discord. Somehow with the change in Rocket Lab being now this corporation or whatever, the legal structure changed, somehow his broker sold all his shares and bought them all back, and then he incurred a ton of capital gains.
What?
And he's
no way
to do anything about it. And I was like, what the hell? But yeah. Anyway, sorry, just mentioned that because you said Rocket Lab to zero.
That's insane. Well, I was actually very surprised. I had seen companies change their name before under the same ticker and never have any problems. But it did, like everybody else on Tuesday. I saw it in mine, and I was very confused because the ticker didn't change, right? So it changed to a bunch of random letters and numbers for me for about half the day, and then it moved back to Rocket Lab. Everything was fine, but now you're making me double check. Maybe I want to go back and check my cost basis. Luckily, I keep a spreadsheet of everything anyway, so it should be pretty close. I'll just have to double check, but good reminder on that piece. But yeah, so I was a little bit surprised, but for some reason my options didn't go through the same. So I thought it was pretty strange because I have a bunch of leaps and I have some cash secured puts in there as well. Those tickers didn't have a problem, but just the underlying stock itself.
Are you sure, Dave, that he cannot do that? Because it sounds so weird because he didn't put in a sell order and a buy order.
I think he should be able to take some kind of legal action against his broker. He was saying he was from Korea or something like that, and the broker is, maybe smaller or something, but I'm not too sure of all the details. But yeah, I would be very angry because realizing all those capital gains at once could be very detrimental.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a large bill for me.
And how do you even pay it, right?
Yeah,
because your money is like your money is tied up.
Yeah,
it's nuts. Okay, cool. So,
but yeah, back to Rocket Lab, I do kind of feel like they're okay overall. It sounded like MSR was going to be kind of canceled either way, so they weren't going to get that contract. I don't think they have a ton of NASA business. They have a few missions, but if NASA's budget does get cut, in a big way, I think certainly disappointing for those goals. But Rocket Lab, participating in the Golden Dome and the SDA, which seem to be, getting the benefit of this administration, will do fairly well.
I mean, isn't it the cuts that NASA faces? It is given back 1,000-fold with this Golden Dome initiative. Because I was actually just in preparing for this episode, I was going through the investor presentation and, and I was like, they're going to spend $175 billion in 3 years. And I'm like, if Rocket Lab just gets, like 1% of that is 1.7 billion in 3 years. I mean, that would like.
You're right. And I think from a purely Rocket Lab perspective, yes, and they have said they wanted to play a major role in the Golden Dome, and they're making moves there. I guess the only thing I'll say is it's not coming back to some of the causes as space fans we might like to see, like the telescopes and stuff like that are getting canceled. But yeah, in terms of Rocket Lab, it seems like I think they'll be just fine. I don't know. Do you have
good news? The good news, it doesn't look like SDA 3 is getting hit. at least for now. Tranche 3.
Well,
seems to
the
be
tracking
intact.
layer, yeah, transport layer got delayed, but I don't think we've heard any updates on that.
Okay, I think let's start doing the normal Rocket Lab Weekly. We go through the news, and then all these things will come up naturally, anyways, as part of the cycle. So we start with the first news, which is oops, we put it back, which is that the Black Sky launch is delayed. They're targeting June 3rd. I feel the launch section of the company is doing really well, and I don't think this is any significant news. I don't know if you guys want to comment on this, or we can just
Been a
go to the
little
next
bit
one.
light on the first half of the quarter, maybe for launches, but
It's been the pattern, and then
Yeah.
and then they launch like crazy at the end of the quarter.
yeah, that's why I'm not too worried right now. And
I was hoping that
Yeah.
with the delay that they're going to be like, oh, we're moving to June 3rd. But instead, like 2 days from now, we're going to launch X, right? Or something like that. I was like, oh, because at this point they pushed twice. It was supposed to be the 21st or something like that. Maybe it's supposed to be the 25th, and then they moved it to the 28th, and now it's the 3rd or something like that. So I was hoping they'd be like, by the way, even though we're bumping this one, we're going to move this one ahead. And
yeah,
but yeah, I agree. I would like to see at least 4 this quarter, And so now that we're into June, starting tomorrow, it means we have to get 3 off. So this is 1, and hopefully we'll get some sort of turnaround quick for Victus Hayes or something like that. That'd be really exciting to kind of get that kind of off of our docket, because I know that one's been sitting there for like a year. I don't know when it's supposed to be sent.
I also don't know.
Yeah. In general, I think I'm feeling good about Electron, though. So
Yeah. Cool. So now, little small news, but Rocket Lab Weekly, we mention all the news that relates to the company. So Rocket Lab's Arjun company, probably butchered the name, Frank Klein, parted ways of little small amounts of shares. Frank Klein, whose timing was impeccable when he started coming to work for Rocket Lab and got... Have you ever seen anything like this? The guy gets awarded a bunch of shares. I think it was like around $4. And like literally within a few months, his shares are worth like $20 or $30.
yeah, unbelievable. Great.
That guy. And he trimmed a little bit of it. You can see here it's what is it, 0.18% of his position. No big deal. So this is all.
Do we
for
know?
Tesla.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter too much either way. But do we know if they're selling shares to pay for the taxes for stock-based comp or anything like that, or if it's just selling straight up?
I would guess that it's taxes, but I have no clue. I can't.
Yeah, I would have that as well.
I mean, it's such a small amount that it doesn't feel like they're buying a boat or a house or.
Well, all I can say is I hope we haven't seen Frank, but I hope he's been working very hard behind the scenes on these things, earning those those shares.
Yeah, I mean, agreed with you there. I mean, I would love to have him on the stream. I know I've poked him in the past. It doesn't even have to be on the stream, just to ask him, because I haven't seen any mentions of him on X or anything like that, and so I'm really curious to see how he's doing and how he's enjoying the company. It's a different culture than probably any other company he's worked at either as well. So very curious to see how he's enjoying it. And the thing that bothers me, I mean, I don't have many critiques of the company, and I always try to keep it very positive, is, I really admire Adam. Maybe it's because I've had a couple conversations with him and I've really grown to like the guy, but it was kind of upsetting to me that when Frank joined, no offense to him, and I'd love to have more conversations and get him on the channel and figure out how he's liking it and making things efficient in terms of streamlining everything. The fact that he kind of superseded Adam in terms of share count kind of upset me a little bit. And it doesn't seem like Adam's the one that kind of sells a lot. So it just kind of seems like, in that respect, Adam seems to have been kind of shafted a little bit in terms of that. So that's only the thing that I can maybe comment with respect to the share-based compensation news that Scott shared.
Yeah, well, maybe Adam's next contract, he's due for a bump.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good point. Like, Pete got a bunch of his shares kind of taken off the market, right? Because I think now people will start to recognize they're starting to quote 450 million shares instead of the 500 plus million shares that are outstanding, because that removes kind of Pete's 50 million share block off of the market, if that makes sense. So, which is kind of nice if you think about it from a liquidity standpoint. If Pete's not going to be moving those shares, it means less available shares. So that would obviously mean the scarcity and the demand for these shares likely is to go up, because now that 50 million have kind of been removed from the float. So anyway.
Interesting. Cool. So now we came to the main news of the week, the elephant in the room. I'm pretty sure that this is what almost everybody wants to hear about, and that is the latest acquisition. GEOST LLC was announced on the 27th of May. Very suspiciously, just the announcement was made after market close, but the day before, so the trading hours before, the stock was up like 10%, very suspiciously. So I think some people maybe knew that this deal was coming, and let's go through and see what you guys think of the deal. If you're happy as a Rocket Lab shareholder, do you think they paid a good price? And what do you comment about this deal?
Yeah, I'm happy. I wasn't sure if we're going through the document or not, but a little bit of dilution. They're doing it at a time when the stock price is high, and I'm happy to see them take advantage of it and make some savvy moves. It's not the next acquisition I was expecting, but I do think it makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about the STA Tranche 3 tracking layer, which we know they're going to go after. And Peter said in our interview, as well as on the earnings call, they're very interested in. So they are or were contracted for the Tranche 2 tracking layer satellites for Sierra Space. So clearly their sensors are good and they can be used for that purpose. So I think we're really starting to cook here when it comes to full end-to-end space company. So very excited.
Yeah, and to build on that, they also were subcontracted out for the SGA-1 tracking layer for Northrop as well.
Oh, okay.
So that, and then I did some other digging because I wasn't really familiar with them so much, other than kind of that original SDA group of contracts. And so that being said, the SDA, it's supposed to, for Tranche 1 transport layer, is supposed to be going up sometime this year. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of see the performance of that, and hopefully it's all positive performance. But I guess a lot of the other payloads, which I'm curious if Rocket Lab has a little bit more details about this. I'm sure they do, which is probably why they made the acquisition. Is I guess these guys have been making satellites since the 2004 timeframe, and a lot of the payloads that they have created have all been for kind of classified missions. So providing, on 10 different occasions, classified payloads for what looks like mostly to be NASA or the Department of Defense. And so from what it states, it's 100% mission success rate for those opportunities so far to date. But another thing that I wanted to be curious about, if you knew what was going on, I see that there's a current litigation going on with those 16 Mercury payloads and 2 Phoenix payloads that is supposed to be going up for the Tranche 2 tracking layer with Sierra Space. And I don't know if you know more about it than I do, so I'm going to ask either of you if you know what's going on with that.
It's brand new news to me, the lawsuit.
Sorry, I was reading through the chat, and Curtis's comment was interesting, talking about the revenue. But sorry, what was the question again, Matt?
So apparently, let me read it. There's apparently like an ongoing litigation with Sierra Space about Tranche 2.
Yeah, they dropped it. Yeah.
Did they drop it? Okay.
But yeah, so GEOST was suing Sierra Space, alleging that basically they had talks and Sierra promised that they would be going with GEOST sensors for their satellites and agreed and everything verbally. And then Sierra backed out at the last minute, went with some other company on the DL, and GEOST was suing them, but I think they dropped it just before this was announced. So
Okay.
maybe they just didn't want to have that hanging over the company when Rocket Lab buys it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that basically they incurred costs, and what it looks like, this is Grok, right? I don't know anything. I'm just pulling it off of Grok, but it looks like Sierra Space paid like $25 million under the table, of which it looks like GEOST kind of incurred like 40 something million. So I think they were just suing for the remainder, which is like 17 million. And I guess they were like, you know what, 17 million, versus just getting the company sold. So you're probably right. It's why wait up years litigation for 17 million when probably the litigation itself would cost probably that much, maybe. So you're probably right.
Interesting. So I just want to give, there was a tweet by someone that we trust, in his numbers at least. He made a tweet a little bit about the numbers. So earlier this week, Rocket Lab announced the intent to acquire Arizona-based electro-optical and infrared provider GEOST LLC. While details are scarce, let's take a look at the info that's available. I present to you the bull case in 5 parts. So he says, since inception, GEOST has been obliged $98.3 million, primarily from U.S. Air Force and primarily in the form of computer programming services. So I think what I understand here is they were awarded $98 million worth of contracts. Is that, do I understand it right, guys?
Looks like it.
Yeah, something like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's surprising to me is that it says primarily in the form of computer programming services. That was a bit surprising to me, because I thought that they were deploying payloads, but maybe it's being done on a different model, like they deploy the payload and then you pay to use the program or something. And then Scotto says, if we assume a 3-year rollout between the award and recognition, then the current revenue rate is expected to be 22 million a year. And here's an estimated revenue chart. Curtis said 66 million. I don't know where Curtis got that number from, but it's interesting to look at it. This would be about a 5% increase for Rocket Lab in revenue, with the acquisition price of 275 million, 125 million in cash, 150 million in shares. This places the GEOST price tag at the price of sales of 12.2, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Government revenue is only part of the equation. Using a conservative estimate of 25 to 75 split between commercial and government brings the GEOST to a more palatable 30 million a year mark, or a price to sales of 9.2. So the only comment I want to make here is a question. Do you guys think that here the 150 million shares is because they have this at the money market offering of a certain amount of shares? Do you think that they are using that, and instead of issuing the shares, getting paid for it, and then paying it for the company, they just give the company the shares to not dilute more? Or did they issue new shares under the table? Maybe it's bad to say under the table, but so do we still have the 500 million credit line intact? What do you guys think about that?
I think what's happening, and based on kind of what Adam said on our interview with them, where they're kind of pulling from it for acquisitions mostly, is I would imagine they pull about 125 million from that credit from that 500 for the cash portion, and then we get 150 million worth of new shares issued. So that would be more dilution, and that will, still keep some ammunition on that at the money offering, because Peter did say in some recent interviews apparently that they're not done. So it sounds like there could be more coming.
Yeah, I think that there could be potentially more as well. I interpreted it kind of like we have a 515 million in cash as of the end of the first quarter. They probably used 125 million for that, and then they also went back, like you stated, Dave, to to tap for another 150 million. So that would probably be what? I'm not good with math. What are we? We're about maybe like 1% dilution. So maybe selling another 4 or 5 million shares to be able to get or raise that cash. I don't necessarily know. Maybe you're right. Maybe they did actually give whomever the owners were 4 to 5 million shares. But I guess we'll have to wait. Maybe they have it written in the actual document. Let me look.
I guess the interesting thing, though, is if Curtis's numbers are correct, then Scott's price to sales numbers would be off a fair bit, and it would be an even better deal. So, I mean, it sounds like Scott did make an assumption there based on backlog or something like that.
I just feel that a 10% price to sale is quite reasonable. And if Curtis's numbers are correct, it's like a 3 times price to sale. And that doesn't make sense if the company is accretive to adjusted EBITDA, like how do you call it? Like, because all the other acquisitions, it seemed like they were saving companies out of some trouble, like the Mynaric one. But this one seems to be like the company was doing good on its own, and like basically Rocket Lab needed it to be I mean, I'm sure it's a win-win for both companies, but it doesn't seem like this company was in trouble, and then a 3 times price to sale would, I don't know, doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it could be low. Well, I would say either way, if we do end up landing a contract for the tracking layer, this company has paid for itself immediately. So
yeah, that was my other comment that I didn't say. That it's like, I don't think that Sir Peter Beck and Adam Spice was counting the price to sales, and that was the decision factor. It's more like this unlocks billions of dollars of contracts, and even on one contract for the Golden Dome, the company pays for itself. I think that was more the rationale. Yeah, and just to round out Scott's tweet, it says, if the assumptions are accurate, there is a case to be made that GEOST is a slightly expensive transaction. That is, of course, until you factor in the tech tree that this acquisition unlocks. The implications are huge, and there's a picture of Orange Man Bad in the middle. So the Golden Dome acquisition. I think we can go through the slide a little bit also, just to cover some very important points. It says this acquisition gives them an opportunity to bring end-to-end mission solutions that benefits the current national security proposals that would drive meaningful near-term revenue. Then here, it says, it gives a list of what this acquisition enables Rocket Lab to do, which is missile warning and tracking.
Your other tab.
Oh, thank you. Tech support for today. So here we go. So the core capabilities is missile warning and tracking, tactical intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, Earth observations, and space domain awareness. Do you guys remember how many Rocket Lab weeklies we have spent debating that they will not go into Earth observation? And never say never.
I guess so. That's kind of what I was curious about too, because history of Rocket Lab is they like to basically get the government or a customer to pay them to develop a capability that they want anyway. As we know, with like Varda, they wanted to learn how to do reentry and stuff like that. So is this like, what do they want to do with these capabilities? I guess, is there something outside of Golden Dome for themselves, for their own constellation? Or what do you think?
It's funny. I was thinking about the exact same thing. And I think Peter Beck is a genius about, now let's use some Canadian terms, like skating where the puck is going and not where the puck is. So he was basically saying that Elon Musk came up with an idea like, let's have, broadband internet to everyone, something that didn't exist before. And then they risked a lot of money to do it. And he said that Rocket Lab is following a different path and they're not betting the company on any one thing. And he basically sees that the government is going towards this golden dome. There is this on top of it, with the haste and the geopolitical condition of the planet, like we need to see missile tracking, this rapid response. And he saw that, okay, that is going to be the demand. And then they went ahead and made sure that they can, fulfill this market need. And I think that the Earth observation, they're obviously going to be doing, but I think that they're going to be doing it for governments. Like, they're not going to be like another Planet Lab or Black Sky competitor. I think it's going to be for very specific government missions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're thinking about that, in that respect, it's like, how do I say this? If they're going to be launching their own constellations, then I feel like they have to build some sort of payload that allows them to do multiple things potentially in one, kind of like a Swiss Army knife. And I know he's talked about this in previous ones as well. I don't know. I'm just an enthusiast, so it's hard for me to kind of say. But if you have the ability to do some sort of constellation that allows you to do 2 or 3 different opportunities in one, and somebody can then, instead of doing or paying for what they do with Black Sky or Planet Lab, you can then go to a Rocket Lab, for example, and they're already up there, then I think it would challenge those guys and really allow them to potentially knock them out in terms of the ability, because it's like those guys will always, Planet Lab, Black Sky will always have the cost of having to launch those vehicles, versus a Rocket Lab. The first launch might be 55 million or whatever to be able to get up in the air for whomever, but the actual cost to Rocket Lab for launch number 1 might be, say, 30 million. Then if you're able to do it, say, 10, 20 times, then it drops down to 3 million or 1.5 million in terms of total cost per launch. If you were to think about it, yes, there's going to be underlying costs with it as well. But so the total cost for those things to get up into space might only be, let's just say 4 or 5 million, versus it might cost a Black Sky or a Planet Lab 50, 55 million. Or I guess 10 or 11 if you're only having to utilize an Electron. But anyway, makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit. What potentially Flatellite or anything else might be used for.
Just want to say that the Golden Dome's business model, like how they service that need, is not known yet, right? So it could be that this is the Rocket Lab constellation, and they're going to get paid to make their own constellation, and then the government will have a subscription to it, and they will have the permission and ability to sell this to other countries also that need a similar service. Because, like, again, we don't know if the Golden Dome is like, ordering the constellation and Rocket Lab is delivering it, or are they ordering the service of tracking missiles and being able to. So this might be it.
There's so much we don't know about Golden Dome. I want some more firm details on it. But yeah, we heard SpaceX with their partnership with Endural and Palantir were pitching that kind of subscription model. So it could be like something like that. And then Rocket Lab owns their own satellites and provides data on a subscription model as well. And that's ends up being the first of a few Rocket Lab constellations.
Curtis brings up a good point, though, about specifically the Earth observation piece. They're mostly infrared or laser optic sort of payloads that GEOST kind of brings to the table. And so he's right. You might still have to have the actual image themselves, but in terms of like determining how the Earth is changing or the infrastructure being built in certain areas, you definitely could do that with, say, infrared and kind of use the differences to seeing how things are done. But yeah, you still might want to actually have physical images. So you're right there, Curtis. It doesn't necessarily go directly for what Black Sky and Planet is doing. At least as far as I'm aware, I don't think that they do any infrared. It's mostly actual just images themselves from what I've seen.
Oh. And
okay, somebody's correcting me there. So maybe they do have Earth imaging tech. I thought it
I
was
still want to
mostly,
see the software-defined phased array communication acquisitions. That's what I was looking for. But anyway, maybe it's coming.
Do you guys know another question that I have is how does the Mynaric, which was also like optical sensors and communication, and this company was also optical sensors and communication, like is it like complementary services to each other, or are they like did we pay 2 times for the same thing here, or?
I'm hoping they're complementary. It sounds like GEOST also does more of the ground stations that could potentially be receiving, I guess, communications from the satellites up above. So I don't know if Mynaric did that or just the terminals that go on the sats, but yeah, I can't imagine there's a ton of overlap. The only other thing I was thinking is one is European, one is American. Maybe if there's any national security barriers or tariff issues or whatever, they have one that can sell to the European market, and that could be beneficial in some way.
at least when I'm looking at, so GEOST, I think, is more so focused on like missile tracking and kind of things of the like, versus the Mynaric stuff is more data transfer with lasers. So the key difference is it doesn't look like is clear to me, at least, but just on the surface at a very rudimentary level, that's the way I'm kind of interpreting it, just looking at kind of the descriptions. So it looks like, let me pull this up here. GEOST EO/IR, so Earth observation, infrared sensors detect visible light and infrared radiation. So it can detect basically photodetectors for imaging, missile plume detection, AI, machine learning, algorithms for real-time data processing. So, for example, payloads using infrared sensors to track missile heat signatures hardened against radiation and jamming. Mynaric is free space optical communications via infrared laser beams. So laser diodes and modulators for data encoding, avalanche photodiodes over my head for signal detection. And basically the example for that one is the Condor Mark III, using laser transceivers to receive up to 10 gigabytes per second, gigabits, not gigabytes, gigabits per second link over 4,000 kilometers in space. So it allows potentially the difference being GEOST sensor passively collects environmental data. Mynaric's laser actively transmits data, requiring precise precision alignment with the beam itself and atmospheric compensation. All that over my head. Like I said, I'm by no means a rocket engineer or a space engineer by any means.
All right. So basically, the market seemed to be liking this acquisition, and it's a 250 million acquisition, and the market cap, based on my calculations, a 10% increase is like a $1.3 billion increase in the market cap. So we have, on this acquisition, Rocket Lab has gained almost 4x. I mean, we gave a little bit back, but the stock price is still higher, I believe, than when it was announced. If we count the move before, so like, yeah, you guys understand how I mean. Cool. I think that was all for this news, and basically this allows Rocket Lab, it seems like, to compete in national security missions, and that was the purpose of this acquisition. And I think that the first closest possible award is from the Space Agency for the Tranche 3 tracking layer, and that announcement is the 1st of October 2025. So that is the next catalyst on this that we can look for. And if I read it right on Twitter, and if the Twitter information is correct, the acquisition was announced on the last day when the proposals were to be submitted. And this cannot be a strange coincidence.
Yeah. Like as I said, I think it very much strengthens their proposal to get one of these tracking layer contracts, and they managed to apparently have that happen on the last day before it was due. So I was a little confused because the due date of the proposals was the 22nd of May and the announcement was the 27th, but apparently this actually happened back on the 22nd and they only announced it on the 27th. So
Interesting.
Cool. So that was all the Rocket Lab news for this week, but we had a ton that happened in the space world. One of them is Firefly Aerospace is MLV, which I think stands for Medium Launch Vehicle, which is a very unsexy name, got named to Eclipse. And their CEO also seems to have left the company or is leaving the company. Yeah, it says co-founder.
I thought you meant the new CEO was leaving. Sorry.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, I kind of like them.
Sorry, no. The old former CEO, Tom Markusik, is announcing a new space company called Frontera Space. And I have no idea what that company is doing.
Interesting.
Any comments on this?
It'll be a while until they, have hardware ready to go or whatever. It takes a while with this industry, I think.
But are they even into hardware, or are they into? No, I mean probably some. But I mean, like, do you think they're into rockets or satellites or? Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we will report on it once we know.
Shame on Bloomberg for leaking the name a day early. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I did see that.
And I did think the investment from Northrop into Firefly was interesting. Like they're already kind of working together on Antares 330 and MLV, and I don't know. These companies are just tied so closely together. I feel like at some point, maybe Firefly becomes part of Northrop, but I guess you never know.
Isn't Firefly trying to IPO?
Sorry? There was rumors they were gonna IPO, and then it never really happened.
Sorry, which company?
Firefly.
Firefly.
I think they might need to get a couple more wins under their belt before that.
Yeah. I think the last failure didn't help them. Like I think it was the rumors were the rumor mill started going after the successful moon landing, and then they had a failed launch, and I think that did not help them.
So Frontera is supposed to be space planes, single stage to orbit space planes that get you point to point suborbitally. So high speed transportation between distances, think like New York to Tokyo via suborbital flights. So reducing times to hours or less, basically trying to.
That's a very interesting concept.
Move people across the earth.
You guys know why? I'm a real estate developer, right? And like on the zoning, like because like let's say that if you would want to go from New York to Tokyo, right? You can't really land because the rocket is so freaking loud. I don't know if you guys know, but if a human would stand next to the rocket, like you would die from the sound. Like it's that. I don't know how many of you know that. Did you know that this decibel that they use for the sound, like if something is 70 decibel and then it goes to 71 decibel, it's actually twice as loud. Like each time you go a decibel, it's twice as loud, right?
It's kind of like the Richter scale.
Yeah, and how do you call it? I think that the human ear gets damaged at 90 decibel, and what I read is that a rocket launch is 130 decibels. So that's like it's not like 40% higher like from 90 to 130. It's like 40 doublings.
Yeah.
So my point is that like you have to land very far away from Tokyo to be able to land with the rocket, and then most probably like you have to arrive a couple of hours before launch because you have to go through, you know, the launch sequence and, you know, blah blah blah, and already you can't take off from the middle of New York, so you have to probably travel a few hours off New York, wait a few hours for the launch, and then you fly a few hours away from Tokyo, and then you have to travel in. So I don't know if I'm sure it's faster than the plane, but I don't know if it saves you all that much time.
I mean, Elon, if you remember, pitched this for Starship as well, doing point to point, going, you know, like London to Tokyo in an hour or something. And I never really bought that one as something that's we're gonna see in our lifetimes as being worth it. But
I mean, look at just the people who live near Starbase and also who live in Florida, that the rocket is like shaking the windows in Florida, even if you're like super far away from the launch site. So you like, if you're doing city planning, like how do you what do you do with the sound of the
why they banned the Concorde, right? I mean, they were, you know, people kept complaining of the Concorde flying over, and that's why they limited it pretty much to being New York to London, or Paris to New York, is because, you know, the majority of the travel ended up being over the ocean, and so they could actually go supersonic. So anyway, just some thoughts.
Yeah. So I'm not investing in that company, but I don't think they need
maybe they'll do better than Virgin Orbit. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Anyways, I don't think my investment is there. Make break.
If it makes money, I'm always pretend. I mean, like ASTS, right? I'm not investing now, and, you know, I wish everybody the best with it. But if it ends up working and the revenues start to show up, maybe I'll show up later, even if it means I lose out on 100-200% returns. Anything can get de-risked.
Yeah. You don't have to buy everything. That's the nice thing.
That too. Yeah, you don't have to buy everything.
Yeah, and I guess the last news, I don't have a slide on it, is that we had a new test flight of Starship, and it still.
Are you on your other tab, Vince?
Yeah, but I don't have a tab for it. I can just take.
We're just talking about it. Yeah.
I go like this, and it went further than the last time. It still ended in a rod. I mean, let's say it like this. So the first stage is doing really well, and they have reflown it, and as far as I understand, that went no, it didn't go nominal, but they were testing things on it, right? But so the first stage research, I feel, is going really well, but the Starship part, the second stage, is it's a third rod in a series, and SpaceX can't seem to produce a cargo bay that opens, and that's an issue, and the fact that they have 3 rods in a row is an issue. So what do you guys think, other than it's a freaking hard problem to solve?
Yeah, unfortunate. It's a tough problem. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and root for Starship to fail. I think you know, I'm team space, and I want to see people on Mars as well as Neutron doing well and all sorts of other things. So I do want it to succeed. I think they'll get the doors figured out at some point. I have no doubt of that. I guess the disappointing thing for me was that I don't think they really got to test the heat shield tiles that well, because they had issues beforehand. So to me, the main issue that they need to figure out and get the data on, I think, is the tiles. And then I don't know how much data they got on it for this flight. So,
or the last 3 flights.
Yeah. So they had a few issues, a few leaks, and I think they'll get most of them sorted out. But the tiles, I guess, and just kind of cracking second stage reusability is obviously tough, hasn't really been done. So yeah,
I'm just kind of amazed that at this point the stage 2 of Starship hasn't been figured out yet, because I feel like stage 2 was the thing that they had tested earliest. And so it might be my rudimentary brain and not fully understanding what's going on here, but I felt like they had already kind of sent the Starship to orbit and tested a lot of these things before they got the stage 1 booster really to a place where, you know, because the stage 1 booster is really the thing that gets it to Mars, right? And so the thing that kind of confuses me is I would have thought that they had a lot of these problems kind of already tested and figured out, with the stage 2 being something that's been around for a few years prior to even stage 1 coming up. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I might want to do some digging to fully understand what testing has been done on the stage 2 actual Starship itself, rather than the stage 1 booster. But
yeah, I mean, you know, you need to use the stage 1 to loft the stage 2 into the correct orbit to, you know, test re-entry and stuff like that. So I guess they can do some lots of ground testing on stage 1
true.
and stuff. But I think until they actually do it, it's hard to know for sure how things will go. But you're right, we have seen tons of them around the factories and on the ground and being worked on and tested down there. So
okay, so Doug's saying they could only fly it atmospherically, so I guess it never really went to orbit.
yeah,
I guess you're right then. Yeah, your statement about how they needed the stage 1 booster to get them in the right orbit to actually test it makes more sense then.
interesting thing though, is if you really think about it, like, could they operate this today with an expendable second stage and still be like the cheapest, most cost efficient rocket to orbit? I mean, I guess they couldn't do like the orbital refueling and that kind of stuff to go to Mars, but I think they could still dump a ton of mass into orbit like very soon once they get the doors figured out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My phone died, so I only have a very bad internet connection. I don't know if you guys hear me right.
No,
or
you're
if I'm
fine. Just blurry, but still
Okay,
good
okay.
looking as always.
Thank you. So
What was I going to say?
I just wanted to say that for me, what's really interesting is SpaceX's big innovation on Falcon 9. It was, they didn't come up with anything new. Like the rocket engine tech has been the same since the 60s. They just innovated on how to make the rocket more efficient, right? And then this problem of getting a rapidly reusable second stage, like it's actually not a solved problem, and it's not for sure that it can be solved. And when I was listening to the live stream, they also said that if they would manage, it would be like a proof of concept that it can't be done, and they don't even have that. And if this problem cannot be solved, then we are kind of forever doomed to Earth, because there's no efficient way of us ever leaving this planet. And yeah, and it's very interesting because, you know, this doesn't get talked about a lot, but that technically is what it, you know, when they say these things, that technically is what it means. And I think they have a lot of confidence that they will solve this issue, but and I have a lot of confidence that they will solve this issue, but technically this is the first time when SpaceX is really in uncharted territory scientifically.
Well, I guess you could debate the reflying boosters was pretty uncharted, but yeah, it's a big problem. I'm curious how much money they've spent. I think we can all agree it's probably maybe taking a little longer than we expected, but maybe that was naive of us to, you know, expect success right away.
I'm kind of curious, like once they figure it out, how profitable do you think they'll end up being? Because at this point, I mean, they're launching so much on the Falcon 9 for customers, and the Starlink is actually the reoccurring revenue from that. I mean, last I checked, they were in the 12 billion-ish revenue range, and that's before taking on any Starship level payload or anything like that. So I'm kind of curious, once they actually get it figured out and, you know, they're able to retain some of these boosters instead of, you know, blowing them up, and, you know, actually use them 20 times like they are for the Falcon 9, right? They're up to 20, 25 times per booster. I'm kind of curious, like what ends up happening in terms of their margins and what kind of revenue they can do. And at what point would they ever kind of spin off Starlink? Or like they'll retain partly ownership of it, I'm sure, But I'm assuming that Elon, he's very much a person that wants to maintain control. So I don't think he would spin off the actual SpaceX company itself, but he would potentially get some of his money back for other ventures potentially, if Starlink kind of gets to an even place where it could be spun off partly.
I'll say something controversial. I think that Starship is going to be loss leading for a very long time because like you have to earn back the development cost, right? And then if they're 12 billion into the, because I read somewhere that they're thinking that Starship is going to cost 10 billion and they have already spent 5. And with these recent RUDs, I don't think that the budget became cheaper. And you have to earn that back. And if you're, like selling a launch for 100 million, how many launches? It's 10, it's 100 launches, right? And then how fast can you scale up to 100 launches? That's probably going to be a couple of years. And then I think that the Starship does not have, how do you call it? Like, I'm not aware of any cargo that is like stuck on planet Earth because Starship is not ready, and anything else can be flown by the Falcon 9. And I think that once Starship has been out for a few years, then you will start having like payloads big enough that is specifically made for Starship. Like, it will open up a whole new market for space telescopes that are getting defunded, and many other things. So I think it will be some time before they earn back money on Starship. And keep in mind, SpaceX is not the reason why they're not IPO'd yet is because they're not a profit-focused company. They are focused on making life multi-planetary, whatever that takes.
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever spin. I don't think they'll ever list SpaceX.
Yeah, it's always one I've struggled with just talking about, potential Starlink IPO is because, like, okay, if I see the cash flow is great and business model makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, can I invest in this company, Starlink, that is now 100% reliant on this other entity, SpaceX, that is still completely separate? It's kind of awkward. But yeah, I think Starship is supposed to make it a lot easier to deploy Starlinks, and they'll see a lot of the revenue come back through the acceleration of Starlink and Starlink Link 2 and more subscriptions, and then they'll have that big, hopefully, contract with NASA to deliver humans to the surface of the moon. That'll pay them a good amount. And yeah, I think it will probably take a while to see people start working on developing payloads specifically for Starship and having them ready to go.
It's a good question. Like, we know that Falcon 9, 50 or so % of their, maybe even more from what I've heard, Doug would know the number better than I would, but at least 50% of those launches are for Starlink. And so if you were to actually start to remove some of that, utilizing the larger vehicle, would you actually almost be cannibalizing your own revenue at that point?
Yeah. Well, they've said, Elon said at some point he thinks they just shut down Falcon 9 and do Starship for everything.
I mean, I guess if your whole sole purpose is to use Starlink as the means to get to Mars and the real vehicle is the Starship, then yeah, you might be onto something there.
Yeah. Well, ultimately what he thinks, or what he's said, is that a Starship will launch for cheaper than a Falcon 9, despite, the obviously massive size difference. So at that point, he feels, well, why even have Falcon 9? Yeah. I think.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I think this is a very good point to end the show for today. I want to shout out Neil Wesson.
Thank you,
who
sir.
Joined somebody's channel. I don't know whose channel.
Yeah, joined mine. Thank you, Neil. Much appreciated. And the super sticker. Much appreciated, my friend. Nice to see some friends from New Zealand joining the channel. It's always a blast, and I definitely want to be able to make it over there at some point. So I'll put this 2 New Zealand Kiwi dollars in my back pocket to help fund that trip for me to go over there at some point.
Cool. And we have also after 1984.
Oh yeah.
And,
thank you, After 19. Big supporter of my channel. So he's always saying hell yeah, Dave. Every time I see that hell yeah, I know.
Hell yeah, brother. Love that.
I think we've lost Vince. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know what I missed, but yeah. So thank you guys for the support. We really appreciate the super chats, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed this week's episode, and see you everybody next week.
Thanks for having us.
Like and sub, everyone.
Yeah, like
exactly.
and sub Dave, like and sub Vince for sure. Thanks all.
See ya.